I'm yakking away and I didn't even unmute YouTube. Hey, sorry, that's so bad. You know what? Maybe that didn't need to be recorded and it just needs to be for y'all, right? But just so you know, that would have to mean what? More people who are struggling. Ain't that something? So you see, put it into perspective. Do I want people to struggle? No, but there are those that are struggling. And you know what? Maybe they don't even need to struggle in the sense of the word. But this is why this morning's topic is just keep swimming, just keep swimming, right? Why? Because we go out into the world, right? Um we go out into the world. Hold on, let me see. Just hang on a second. Well, aficionado, I don't really know who you are yet, sweetie. So just hold on, because I don't know you. And we have a certain way of doing things. So just bear with us this morning. Hey, Moon and Duck. Listen.
Good morning, good morning.
Hey, hey, hey. So just keep swimming. But I'm not just saying that because it's in the movie, right? I'm telling that to you because it is life. It is life. Sometimes we go through things, but if we can remember, we put them there in some way, shape, or fashion or form, you will clear up the confusion in your world. Because if you stop and look for someone to blame, well, you exacerbate what's going on. You make it bigger, you make it worse. So it is always better to take responsibility for what you're going through. Whether you miss the red flags, it doesn't matter. There's no blame. You see, we got to get past self blame. I will tell it to you until you stop blaming yourself. And I will say it until I stop blaming myself. Don't think I'm exempt. I'm human. I am alive. I go through things. Even Neville Goddard last night in the lecture said he gets caught up in the news and what's going on. That's what happens to us. We get caught up. But he's showing you something. He says when you get caught up and you have an experience, you put it there. But he's not telling you that you put it there because you're dumb or you're a loser. That's not why you put it there. You put it there because you fell into a state, a mental mood, a mental attitude. You fell into that mental attitude. And so then the only way for you to experience something is because of the mental attitude that you are in. So you see, if you stop and you blame, or if you stop and you feel guilty, what are you doing? Prolonging your stay in that mental mood. And so long as you prolong the mental mood, you prolong the experience. Well, are you saying I would do that to myself? Are you saying that I don't know any better and that I would really put myself in a tough spot? I'm saying to you, yes, each and every one of us, we do it. Every single one of us, we do it. Let me tell you something. You could get up. If you get up and you're. Somebody had a room titled, Somebody Woke Up with Toilet Paper Between Their Cheeks. And I said, that's telling you the kind of mood that person woke up in. So, in order for you to wake up in that mood, you had to have gone to bed in that mood. So, you see, you've got to check yourself and make sure when you put your head on your pillow at night. See, sometimes we fall asleep quicker than we think. Nah, my head hits that pillow and I am out like a light. Okay. I am out. But some have insomnia. Why? Because they're ruminating on the same problem. So they stay awake. But they do fall asleep. They do. They forget that they did, but they do fall asleep. And they wake up and they're unrested. Why? Because they went to bed in a mood of mental unrest. So let me tell you something. It is your business. You make it your business. That when you put your head on your pillow, you better be in a good mood. Why? So that you can wake up in a good mood. Do you hear what I'm telling you? You encounter people every single day. Somebody ready to cuss somebody out. Somebody ready to do this. Somebody ready to... Why? Because we spend so much time entertaining a particular mood or mental state. The only thing you can do is act it out. But if you catch it, you say you want to have a good day, well, then catch the mental mood you're in. So this morning you got up and you stubbed your toe. Listen, you better shake it off, right? Just shake it off and put some ice on that bad boy. Well, not ice, but you know what I'm saying. Just a cool compress for a moment, right? Just and let it go. Let the mood dissipate. But if you take it outside with you, talking about, oh man, my day sucks. I just busted my toe, blah, 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 and now my foot hurts and it's swollen. I might have broken my toe. And what happens? You go out into the world and you do what? Start spreading your particular brand of cheer. Yes. And then we want to ask the question that was in the lecture last night. Whose fault is it that the world... Well, he didn't ask whose fault. He asked who is responsible for the state of the world. Humanity. And it all comes from our particular brand of mood, our mental fragrance, if you will. Oh, indeed. You get some people who wake up and they're so mad at their jobs. Well, let me tell you how to fix it. If you wake up and you're mad at your job and you don't want to go because I can't stand my boss, or I can't stand that I always got to train people and then they get promoted, or I haven't had a raise in years. Okay, here's how to fix it. See, you are having an argument in your head. Are you not? Of course you are. Listen to yourself. You're cussing out people in your mind's eye, left, right, and center. Well, the law of correspondence gently reminds us, as within, so without, as above, so below. So you see, you are having that mental argument above in your brain. Well, then below in your job, you must do the same thing. So it is easy for us to talk to ourselves. Of course it is. You just have to find a conversation that is compelling enough to keep you talking to yourself. And it is usually the argument about how this person done you wrong and that person is a nuisance and blah, blah, blah. See, we're always talking to ourselves. Always. So perhaps this time, instead of that kind of an inner conversation, why not this one? I wonder what it would be like for me if I went to work and everybody was nice. I wonder what it would be like if I went to work and my boss just said, hey, I've been checking over your productivity. And you know what? Forgive me, I overlooked you. Retroactive, I'm giving you a raise from this time until now. What would that feel like to you if that happened? Don't you dare say to me, girl, you crazy as hell. That would never happen. Don't say that to me. Because you see how you would rob yourself of your raise by saying, girl, that would never happen. But what if it did? When you begin to entertain the possibilities of the good outcome, and you stay in the possibilities of the good outcome, something funny begins to tingle in your body. Oh, yes, it does. And so when it begins to tingle in your body and make you feel good and warm and fuzzy all over with the mere possibility of a raise, retroactive, girl. Yeah, you see that feeling is completely different. How about when you go to bed at night, you explore all of the possibilities of what you're going to do with that money. Put yourself in that story. Try on the new hat or pay that bill. You hear what I'm saying? Get in your mind's eye and do that. Allow that inner conversation to totally enthrall you, hold you there. Because the only difference between that conversation, that new conversation, and the old one is how long you've been rehearsing the old. That's it. So that's how you're going to fix this problem at work. But what if you get fired? Well, what if you get fired? Because you didn't want to be there anymore anyway. But you know what? It now opens you up to do what you really want to do. So don't freak out. Don't panic. Because you set it in the works. Just like the man in the Neville Goddard lecture, they would carpool. And when it was his time to drive, he would always sit back and close his eyes and go, "Ugh, man, I sure hate this traffic. I just want me a different job where I don't have to drive in this traffic. I don't have to fight this traffic. Same pay, but I hate this traffic." It didn't tell you how long he did it. But he went to work one day, and the company was restructuring. It was being restructured. And there was only one job that came up to be removed. And you can guess whose job it was, yeah? His job. So he went to Neville and he said, "Neville, why did that happen to me?" Well, Neville said, "What were you doing?" He goes, "Man, I was just driving and being carpooled, and I was just imagining that I didn't want to be in that commute anymore. I just wanted something where I didn't have to drive like that." And Neville says, "Well, that's why you don't have your job anymore." But what was the other part of his imaginal act? That he got something where he didn't have to commute. And he made the same money or more. And in 3 weeks' time, he started that job. So if it can happen for somebody else, if good things can happen for someone else, good things can happen for you. Why? Because there is no shortage of good things. There is no shortage of good things. Not a lick of that, I'll tell you. There is no shortage of good things. If you can imagine the worst case scenario, you can also imagine the best case scenario, because all you're doing is imagining anyway. So all I am wanting to do for you on this beautiful day, because we're going to practice at 6 a.m. and I'm practicing for starting work at 7 a.m. So short, sweet, and to the point. If you want your outer world to change, then your inner attitude must change as well. There is nothing you can do to change that. Nothing at all. So you may as well get used to doing it and just practice. Well, how do you know that it works? Look at your life right now. What are you doing? What are you experiencing? Can you catch your inner conversations? Hmm? 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 Can you catch your inner conversations? Listen, let me tell you something that happened to me last night. As I was reading the lecture, I need to go down to the health food store and pick up some empty veggie capsules so I can fill them to make a herbal blend, right, for someone. And I said, man, I don't want to drive all the way downtown. Because in my mind's eye, that was the store. Okay? Because that's the store I've always gone to. And I said, I don't want to go downtown. I've been saying this all day. I've been dreading it. And as I was reading the lecture last night, a flash into my memory. That exact same store is 10 minutes from your house. I said, shut your mouth. We go in there tomorrow then. Coincidence, you ask? No. But look at my level of intensity. I was going to make that drive because I have to make that drive because I have to make this for the client, right? But I did not want to make that drive. But what I had forgotten was this store has a sister location. The exact same store, but just closer to me. And I said, well, hallelujah. I said, thank you. I said, thank you. It came back to my memory. How did it come back to my memory? Because I needed it to. I needed a solution because I had a problem. And it wasn't just a problem where I was just rocking in the corner. I was just living my life. And there was the response. There was the answer. See? So what I am telling you is, you have a problem. I bitched and moaned about my problem. I said, oh, man. And you know who I felt like? I felt like Abraham. He was at the altar, about to sacrifice his son, getting the altar ready, and I was ready to drive the distance. But then all of a sudden I heard, man, there was a ram caught in the thicket. And I didn't have to sacrifice. I was going to drive anyway, but then I saw the closer option. It just flooded back into my memory, and I said, well, hot diggity dog. I will call them in the morning to make sure they have what I want, because they normally do at the other location. So I said, they're going to have what I need. So I'm going to call them when they open. And that's where I'll head down to and do what I need to do. Right? Why am I telling you that? Because we all are going to have situations, some more extenuating than others. Right? But at the same time, even though you may have a problem, the solution is there. You see, my subconscious mind, quote unquote, that's because that's what we call it in the world, right? We call it a subconscious mind. But in reality, what I had done was I had a problem and I voiced that problem not out loud. I was driving back home from my second interview yesterday in not full rush hour traffic, but it was enough to say, Lord Jesus, not a lick of this. Oh, God, no. I can't deal with this nonsense. Plus, I'm going to have to drive to the store to get this thing. I said, and this is what I'm saying to myself. I'm like, I just don't want to do that. But I'll go if I must. And I came home and did what I needed to do, get supper ready and so on. And I still didn't have an answer, but like I said, I had already determined to go. Today, I had already determined to go. But partway through that lecture, you see where my mind was? My mind was not on my problem. My mind was just simply on reading the lecture, narrating it. Remember what Neville Goddard said? He said, Some of these lectures may feel like they are beyond you and you just don't understand. But he said, if you come into the lecture just to listen and forget about your problem would be solved before the night is done. Oh, I had a problem and it was solved before the night was over. But then my question is, why was that one solved? And my job situation or client situation is still in limbo. Do you know why? Because I am still in limbo. Because I know what I want. And I am railing and fighting against what I do not want. So it has to persist. You hear what I'm saying to you? See, because some people look for the testimony of the, oh my God, I did it. But what they don't always see is why they are in the midst of something. That is also a testimony. When you can see where you are and why you are there. Now that is a surefire testimony. Why? Because you did not know it before. And now that you know it, what do you do? What do you do? Well, you modify your behavior. So what does that mean? It means my focus needs more focus. So what did I do? I just have to be willing. Instead of fighting against my problem, just be willing. And when you are willing, a solution appears. Why? Because you are not fighting anymore. You're not mentally fighting anymore. Do you grasp what I'm saying to you today? You are not mentally fighting anymore. You have simply acquiesced. That's my word. I saw that word in a dream. I saw it and it was just spelled out in letters. And I saw it and I got up and I was like, acquiesce. I saw the words. I saw the word and I heard it, the pronunciation. I was like, acquiesce? What does that mean? To surrender without a fight. Just to say, here, take it. So when you say to yourself, remember Abraham, because this is what the story actually means psychologically. Here he is ready to sacrifice his son. Now, if you think, I want you to see what Neville Goddard means when he says it's psychological. That would be like somebody saying to me, listen, I want you to go up on top of that mountain and I want you to kill your son. Just to prove to me that you love me. I'd be like, you crazy. I'm not going to kill my son to prove I love you. If you don't believe I love you, well then, that sucks for you. But it doesn't mean that you hurt your child. You know what it means? It means the thing that you love to hold on to, the problem that you've got, you are willing to throw it to the wayside. You're willing to burn it. You're willing to sacrifice that problem. Because that problem is the old way of thinking, the old way of doing things. You are willing to sacrifice that old way of doing things so that you can do what? Live the new. When you make the decision, when you acquiesce, I love that word. It just sounds so beautiful. But sounds beautiful, but you know what it means to surrender without a fight. Surrender in your own life to doing the new way of living. What is the new way? Taking responsibility that imagining creates reality. Acquiesce to that. Surrender to that. And you will see the way unfold for you. And you will see the evidence of what you believe. You are already seeing the evidence of what you believe. Every day you see the evidence of what you believe. So pull, ooh, that's beautiful. Pull the mental attitude of Abraham by surrendering. Surrendering to the new. Because the old him, you understand, would not have taken his child up there. And Isaac was like, well, I see the altar, Daddy, but I don't see the sacrifice. What are you going to put on the altar? His father turns around after he, gets the fire lit, and he goes, well, about that. You are the sacrifice. Can you imagine what would have gone through Isaac's mind? The same thing that goes through our mind. You mean Good morning, handsome. So you mean I have to die to what I hold so dear to me? You see, Neville Goddard, and he said it last night in the lecture, but it is also scripture. It says that man has fully given themselves over to the traditions of men. Instead of living by way of God, they now live by way of tradition. So, yo mommy did it, yo daddy did it, your granddaddy did it, and we all live by tradition. Shoot, it's how we learn. How do you think a child knows what religion they are? Because they live by their mothers and fathers' traditions. They no longer live by the word of God, but they live by the tradition. So when you live by tradition, you reap all of the glory that goes along with tradition. Oh yes. So you are now in this position where you're going to have to die to the tradition. But the tradition is all you've ever known. So now you become like Isaac on the altar, and you're fighting because you don't want to die. You don't want to let go of what you've always known. But if you just lay there in absolute surrender, I'm not talking to y'all this morning, I'm talking to me. If you lay there in surrender, you will hear, which is what? The replacement for you, so that you live. But you'll notice that nobody had to die, because the death is not physical. The death is the turning your back on the old way you used to do things. Listen, if you get up every day and all you can do is fight and argue, right? And you say, well, that's just the way I'm always been that way. And, people just get on my nerves. Nah, man, you just conditioned yourself to do it. It's your tradition. Funny thing, that tradition sounds like habit. Law of rhythm, anybody? Yes. Rick, that's what tradition is. What you are familiar with. But you see, when we become so familiar with something, that's why we hold on, just because the new broom might sweep clean, but the old broom, come on, the old broom knows the corners. And because we know it so well, we are hard pressed to surrender it. So that's why when you read that story about Abraham and Isaac at the altar, it is natural for you to fight because everybody wants to live. So it is natural for you to fight. That's exactly what Isaac did. He fought on that altar and he said, no, you don't kill me. I'm elaborating on the story because if you want to pretend that he's human, well, we can do it. Don't just think he lay there and said, sure, daddy. Sure, daddy, kill me. I haven't kissed a girl yet, but go ahead. I haven't even gone out and lived yet, daddy, but go ahead. He did not do that. And neither do you and I want to do it. So we fight against the new. But look at the story. All are redeemed. You will get the opportunity to live your best life. How do I know? Because the story told me so. The story told me so because a ram was caught in the thicket and he did not have to sacrifice his child. So then what does that mean? He got to see his child grow up and become a man and be. Which means you will get to live your best life, but you've got to let go. So in order, remember what scripture says. I now live because Christ died. How? To the old way of doing things. You see, we fear death. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I don't. My boy is only 15. And just like Neville said, I have to look after him, so I have to live. Right? So I'm not going to tell you I'm not afraid of death, but the death that we're talking about here is psychological. That old way that we do things that we are so familiar with. If you bury it, because it's dead, right? If you bury it, life will spring forth from what you have buried. So that is the encouragement for you and me today. That is the encouragement. So if you have an old way that has been, poking you in the ribs, the bee in your body, the pebble in your shoe, look at it and tell it, well, old boy, we had a good run, didn't we? But I want a new life. And in order for me to have a new life, darling, I shall bury you. Because you know what happens to things. I was going to say, you know what happens to seeds. I was going to say things, but I need to specify and say seeds. Because if I say, you know what happens to things, some people will say, oh my God, is that what's going to happen to bodies? This is not the zombie apocalypse. You've been watching too much TV, right? You bury that old way. Because you know what? Life springs forth. Now, what is life? Your new way of being, and that is what you want, is it not? So just keep swimming, just keep swimming, you will get the courage, because every man awakens in his own time. You will get up one morning and you will say, well, today is a new day, and I am a new creation. And you will just let it fall off your eyes like the scales with Saul on the road to Damascus. And you will see your new life. And you will what? Live your new life. That is what you will do. So there, look at that. I failed the test, didn't I? It's 6:20. I failed the test because now I only got 40 minutes, and that includes travel time. Unless, of course. Fine, I surrender to it. I surrender. That was my grandfather's favorite song. I surrender all. I surrender all. I should stop because that hymn is real old, but the Winers, CC Winers, they did a cover of that song, so you got to be careful, you don't know. But when you surrender to your new life, do you possibly think that that is a failure? How can surrendering to your new life be a failure? All because you had to surrender? What are you surrendering to? You. So how is that a failure? It just needs your perspective to change. You're not surrendering to George down the street. I will go down with this ship. I will put my hands up. No, that's not what you're doing. You're looking in the mirror and you're saying, listen, I surrender to my new life and I will walk in it because I know it only means well for me. See? Isn't that the new way? But instead we fight against the old. We fight and we rail against the old. No, I don't want to. Like in the Sister Act, part 2, we don't want no new way. And little Miss Rita Wilson was the only one who left that class. But she did have to surrender and come back to what she loved. But I digress. So I trust today, as we welcome everyone to the space, that today's lesson made sense. Because it made sense to me. It made sense to me. Because when I got up, when I went to bed last night, I said, what am I going to say this morning? What am I going to say? I didn't know. I got up this morning and I said, what am I going to say? I still didn't know. And I heard, just keep swimming. And I was like, oh, we'll talk about that. Persistence. But you know, these words, as the scripture says, these words are not my words. These words are my Father's words. I and my Father are one. So I never fret. No, I don't fret. Because I know the right words will come out and they will not return void. This I know. Because I've experienced it enough. So that's how I know. It's not hearsay. This is raw experience. Doesn't matter the situation. I always have the right words. And that's not a pat on the back or a brag. I'm just telling you from experience. I can only tell you from experience, yeah? So today, as you go forth into this glorious, what are we, Tuesday? As you go forth into this glorious day, what makes it glorious? You. Gloria, Gloria. Sorry. But you're the one who makes this day glorious because you are alive in it. If you remember that. Can't nobody break my stride, right? Nothing's going to throw you off. Because you're not living from the outside. Your steps are ordered by God. Oh, so that must mean you are righteous. What does it mean to be righteous? Right thinking. So if the steps of a righteous man are ordered by God, it means as within, so without. You are thinking and feeling the new way, and thus you have to live it. Hello, Jeff Darrens. It is so good to see you. Not darling. Wisdom Almighty. Y'all are kicking it with us here on YouTube and Facebook. And for the others who've not made themselves known in the chat, that's okay, y'alls. I see you. Symmetric. I see you, beautiful, right here on Twitter. I do. I appreciate your presence. Fan base. Hey. Who's here? Shea Butter. KZ is here. Moon and Duck are here because he does have a duck. He has a pet duck. So y'all say hey a little bit, so we say hey to Duck. Oracle Treehouse, Miss McQueen, Miss Fawn and my beautiful Flo Smiles. Thank you all for being here on this glorious, glorious Tuesday. I just saw what Aficionado wrote in the chat. Listen, there's a blush pink in the sky at the moment. It is the most beautiful color. The only color you can call it is a blush. Like a rosé. Yeah, that's the exact color of it. Rosé. Well, scripture does say to take a little wine for your bodies. So this is why I get to work late, and I can't be late for work. Oh my God. But listen, the day is beautiful and the day is glorious because you are the one bringing the life to the day. You can only bring what you are. So if you bring life, there will be life. Let's go is in the house. Hey. So when you bring life to the world, you put life in it. Oh, but you bring death and destruction to the world. How would you bring death and destruction to the world? Oh my God. My life is so hard. Nobody loves me. Nobody cares about me. I'm alone. Hey, relax. That's death and destruction, y'all. Why? Because depression rots the bones. You are not alone. You're not. You are not alone. And you are wanted. But if you don't see it for yourself, how do you know? Prove it to me, Angela, that I am wanted and I'm not alone. Or when you walk down the street, how many people did you cuss out? You're not alone. You're not. You cussed out many people, so how could you possibly be alone, y'all? You can't be. You're worthy. Yes, you are. Listen, anytime that somebody takes the time out to cuss you back, they deem you worthy because they bestow upon you the most critical thing they have to give, themselves and their time. I'm just telling you what it is. So you better recognize that you are worthy and you are wanted. Because before the world was, I am. You are not an afterthought. You've just fallen into that state of unworthiness. That's all. And the good news is you can fall in the state, child, you can walk right out. Oh, indeed you can. But it will take a change of attitude for you to walk out. Dude, Toyera. Oh, my word. Look who just stepped into the building. George. George, hi. Listen, don't take it personal. I always say something about George. Not you, but just because the name George, right? And fancy that. Here's George in the mix. Call those things that are not, and though they were, and they become. So welcome to the space, George and Toyera. But let me recap, and then we'll get the ball, and chances are you'll hear the bird song too. Today, you are dealing with something, and it is all right to deal with something because we are human and we are always dealing with something or the other. But you and I have been given a very special gift. Knowledge and the ability to apply it. Remember the lecture last night when Neville Goddard said, you can take everything from me, but leave me with the ability to create. Why? Because it doesn't matter what is taken from you. You are a creator, so you can put it back. Bigger and better than before. So you see, no more of this, but I don't have what it takes. You don't? Said who? Well, as a man thinketh, therefore he is. So if you walk around telling yourself you don't have what it takes, well, then you will see the evidence of not having what it takes. But today, as you go out into the world, remember what Abraham did at the altar. Huh? It's a story. He was told, go and sacrifice your son. I want to see how much you love me. That's what he was told. And so he got up and he said, come on, Isaac, we going. We got a sacrifice to make. And so he goes to the altar. He's building this altar and getting the fire ready. And Isaac is looking around talking about, hey, Daddy, I see the altar, but I don't see the sacrifice. Abraham turns around and says, well, son, what had happened was you are the sacrifice. Now put your brakes on and let's comprehend the story. You have an old way that you live by. You have a tradition, a habit, if you will, a rhythm. You have something that you live by that you do all the time, and you don't want it anymore. You don't want it anymore. Because you say what? I'm tired of this, is what you say. Well then, you were asked to sacrifice that thing that is familiar. Mm-hmm. Oh, indeed you are. It's familiar. So you're being asked to lay it on the altar. And you're scared because you're going to be Isaac, right? You're scared, but I don't want to die, Daddy. No, Daddy, don't do this to me, Daddy. There has to be a better way, Daddy. Yes, there is, because that's what we say, right? Because we don't want to let go. But the end of the story is, there was a ram caught in the thicket. And that's where the story ended. Huh? So what is that story telling you today? The thing that you are holding on to, bury it. Die to it. Why? Because when you bury the seed, it must die before it can live. So die to the old way so that you can live in your new way. So don't be afraid to let go of what was old. Simply embrace what is new, because then you're not fighting now. You're not fighting, are you? When you embrace what is new, you're not fighting against, but you are fully surrendered. And that is the key. If you ever had a piece of garlic that you forgot on the counter, or a piece of ginger you forgot on the counter, and you come back and it's all shriveled to bits, but then something interesting happens, it's dead. For all intents and purposes, it's dead and all shriveled to bits. But there's a little teeny tiny shoot poking out at the corner. Is the garlic and the ginger dead, or is it living? Paradoxically, both. Because it had to wither and shrivel and die to bring forth the new shoot. So that's what we do, isn't it? Die to the old, and you'll fuel the new. So don't be scared, as that's what the young people say. That's why the angel always said, fear not. You don't have to fear it. Embrace the new, because that's what you want, isn't it? Anyway, this is my practice run because I'm looking at the clock. Now that I'm fully late for work. Because, listen, I've got to eat and I've got to bathe. So, it means I got to finish earlier. So, this is my practice run. Because I don't start the job today. But, remember to live in your new way. Embrace the new way. And you will be dying to the old at the exact same time. You're doing two things at once. Well, it looks like two things, but you're just doing one thing. You are doing what Deuteronomy 28 says. I put before you life and death. What? Choose. Choose life. Right? So, let us. Miss Deborah is in the house. So, let's get the bowl and bird song. You know, fan base, we always finish off the day with you. So don't fret. Don't if you don't have to rush out, you can stick around if you want. But let's get the bowl, and chances are you might get bird song because he's just gearing up to sing again. My sweet little Roo. That's what he is, my little Roo. Get this set up so we get the bowl. Let me make sure. Hey, see, I see. I just popped into the chat. I always try and make sure I catch the chat and not miss anything. So let's have the bowl. And as you hear the bowl and bird song, I surrender all. What will you surrender to? The new you? Yes. Surrender to the new. Embrace it. You simply say, come hither, darling. I've waited for you my whole life. Just say that. Come hither, darling. We old English today. Not the realm, but we're old English as in Shakespeare. Come hither. Right? Anywho, bowl and the bird song. Countdown initiated. 5, 4, 3, 2. Yay! Why, thank you, wingman. Sorry. Oh, go forth today, my beautiful friends. Every day we be living it up. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Anywho, I do love you. I do love you. And I thank you all for being here. I do not remember the name of the lecture for tonight at 10:45 p.m. But you do know it's going to be lit because this batch of lectures is from 1969. Oh, and last night's lecture, listen, you could have sworn it was 2024. Yeah, very awesome lecture. But anyhow, that's at 10:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you are still awake and want to hang out with us and fall asleep with us, that's how we roll. We tell that bedtime story and we fall asleep in the state of the wish fulfilled. That's what we do. That's how we roll. So, much love to you, Twitter, Symmetric. Let's go and look. Hilarion is normally Twitter, but he's here on YouTube today. Hey. Thank you all. Fan base, I'm coming. So I'll see you guys tonight. Much love. And to that lone person on Facebook, thank you for that heart today. Thank you. And Symmetric just gave me a heart too. Much love, y'all. So much love. Twitter is closed. YouTube, tonight, my lovelies, tonight.